watching Clearcut. Welcome back. I'm Michelle Makori. In Washington, the House Judiciary Committee has voted to hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress. Democrats maintain that Barr is in contempt for not complying with the panel's subpoenas to provide documents related to the special counsel's report on Russia. The resolution will now go to the full House for a vote, where it is expected to pass given the Democratic majority. The vote came after 6 hours of heated debate between House Democrats and Republicans.
No person, and certainly not the top law enforcement officer in the country, can be permitted to flout the will of Congress and to defy a valid subpoena. No person, not the Attorney General, not the President, can be permitted to be above the law. That is what is at stake today.
I don't think today's actually about getting information. I don't think it's about getting the unredacted Mueller report. I don't think last week's hearing was actually about having staff question the Attorney General. I think it's, as my colleague said earlier, I think it's all about trying to destroy Bill Barr because Democrats are nervous he's going to get to the bottom of everything. He's going to find out how and why this investigation started in the first place.
Now, there's no timing yet on the full House vote. Let's discuss this and other issues with Kevin Chavez. He's a former president of the D.C. Democrats and currently a Democratic strategist, and Steve Rogers, a member of the Trump 2020 Campaign Advisory Board. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Steve Rogers, let's start with you. We heard from Representative Jim Jordan. Him and other Republicans say that Attorney General Barr is following the law, and they say, as we heard, this is all an attempt to discredit Barr because Democrats are afraid that they'll be exposed by potential investigations into the origin of the Mueller investigation. What do you make of that?
Well, he's absolutely right. Look, the American people are tired of the Democrat Party continuing to try to hinder and obstruct the ability of the president to govern. The Democrat Party is now dedicated to bringing this president down at all costs. It's all about politics. And let me add that, the Attorney General is obligated to protect sources. This is why a lot of that report was redacted. The president is invoking executive privilege for no other reason but to protect maybe some sources or intelligence information they got that will do what? Lead to what Representative Jordan said, the reason why all this began, and the Democrats don't want the public to see that.
Kevin, what do you say to that?
Well, it's clear that this president is really acting in his own self-interest. He's got his former staffers signing NDAs. He's refusing to comply with any House subpoena or congressional subpoena at all. It's clear that he doesn't want the full Mueller report to get out because the more that we know about the underlying evidence and the report, the worse it'll make him look. House Democrats tried to come to an agreement with William Barr. They tried to lay out parameters for how the report would be released. Congress needs to do something in response to what Mueller described as sweeping and systematic interference in our election by the Russian government. This is serious.
Well, Kevin, haven't we done that? Kevin, we had an investigation into this, and it found that there was no collusion, no conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russians to influence the investigation. Kevin, some people say that everybody, including Democrats, should be on board in looking at how this investigation began, that it could be problematic in terms of the country. Do you support an investigation into the origin of the investigation?
Well, Michelle, first let me say that even though I know Trump likes to say that there was no collusion, no conspiracy, even though Mueller never used those exact words.
The words were no conspiracy.
We haven't taken any steps legislatively to protect our elections. But we haven't taken any steps to improve our elections in result of the interference. Let's put Trump and his actions aside for a minute. What have we done to shore up the integrity of our elections? The FBI director said that there's still a threat, that they meddled in several elections in 2018, and they're probably going to do the same thing in 2020. There is a real legislative purpose behind getting to the bottom of the interference and how we can stop it. I don't understand how that's even debatable at this point.
Well, the Mueller report did actually find that the Obama administration was aware of attempts of Russian interference dating back and didn't do anything about that. But, Steve, go ahead. I want to give you a final word on this topic.
Michelle, he never answered your question. He does not favor, as all Democrats do, they do not favor an investigation of the investigators. And indeed, the President of the United States was cleared of any collusion and any obstruction. And by the way, there is a report out. It's a 400-page report by Robert Mueller given to the American people with redactions to protect sources and perhaps intelligence.
All right, I want to shift gears here and focus on some foreign policy issues. Our top story tonight has been those escalating tensions between Iran and the U.S. There's intelligence that Iran was planning an attack on U.S. interests. The Trump administration pulling out of the Iran deal because of its flaws, because of the limited inspections, because of the sunset clause, which many would argue that just puts Iran on a better path to develop weapons. And Iran has reportedly been advised by John Kerry to just wait out the Trump administration. We do have a number of Democratic contenders saying that the U.S. should go back to that deal. We know that this is the position of former Vice President Joe Biden, Senator Bernie Sanders, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Representative Gabbard, former Obama Cabinet Secretary Castro, and former Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Israel is clearly very concerned about this. Kevin, do you support the Democratic position for the U.S. to re-enter the deal with Iran?
At this point, I would say yes, and most of our American allies agree with that position, and most experts tend to agree that the deal that Obama worked out was the best deal at that at that time. Was it perfect? No, it was not. But at least we were able to inspect some of the reactors, some of the facilities, and the IAEA, said that Iran has been in compliance. Pew Research shows that most of our national security experts in America, 92%, 93%, say that the Iran deal is not something that the U.S. should have withdrawn from. I don't see how going from having at least some access into their nuclear activities is better than pulling out of the deal unilaterally while other allies are remaining in the deal. Now they're struggling with how to react to our decision. And now we're in a position where we may not know for sure what Iran is doing at all, when all indications were they were at least complying with the deal in place. So I don't know what else Donald Trump is proposing other than just increasing sanctions. I know he announced some new sanctions in the past week. He's targeting Iranian steel and aluminum products like that. But I don't see a proposal that helps us get more transparency from the Iranian government.
Well, the limited inspections was just one of the flaws that the Trump administration highlighted in the deal, including the fact that Iran was put in a better position to get a nuclear weapon, at least from an economic perspective, if nothing else, when those sunset clauses do kick in. Now, we do have an increased tension between the Trump administration and Iran. Steve, do you support this approach on tackling Iran?
Look, and the rockets still come down over Israel. All the talk, all the things that people say we must sit down with the Iranians, we must make a deal. My entire life up till this day hasn't stopped Iran through its proxies bringing bombs and missiles down on Israel. So the President of the United States did what is exactly right. Pull out of the deal, get that carrier battle group off of the coast in the Mideast there, and send a very strong message to Iran that you will cease and desist bombing Israel through proxies.
Speaking of those Iranian proxies, Hamas and Islamic Jihad that launched over 700 rockets at Israel this past weekend. Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on the Democratic response to this. Of the 21 Democrats running for president, only 3 weighed in. Let's focus first on former governor of Colorado, John Hickenlooper. He tweeted, "My heart goes out to the families of the Israelis killed and those wounded in those grievous attacks." If we can pull up that tweet. "I call on all parties to show restraint and de-escalate the situation immediately." Cory Booker, when asked a question by CBS News, did say that we support Israel's right to defend itself. But that was it. We didn't hear any support of Israel nor condemnation of Hamas from the frontrunners. We didn't hear anything from Biden, from Sanders, nothing from Kamala Harris, nothing from Beto O'Rourke. Kevin, Israel is one of the top allies of the U.S., was bombarded by rockets aimed at civilians, 4 civilians killed, and conspicuous silence from the Democratic frontrunners. What do you make of that, Kevin? Is that a good strategy for 2020?
I think they should at least speak out and condemn the attacks. I mean, we've got 700 rockets raining onto Israel, which, like you said, has historically been an American ally. They should at least speak out and condemn the attacks. Anytime you have that type of killing and over 200 people, I believe, injured, it deserved to be spoken out on. I think that a lot of the candidates probably are not maybe as educated about the situation as others may be, maybe not willing to take that step because of pressure from some of the newer members in Congress who are focused on sort of occupation of Gaza and some of the concerns
Gaza is not
of the humanitarian crisis there. But I believe it should have been spoken out on.
All right, well, just to be clear, Israel withdrew from Gaza, so it's not under occupation. But I hear your point, Kevin, but are you trying to say that it's ignorance, that Bernie Sanders doesn't know about the situation, that he wasn't aware that Israel was bombarded by 700 rockets? I mean, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I'm not saying he's not aware of that situation. But in terms of, you mentioned, 20-plus candidates and only 3. So out of those, the rest of the 18, I just don't know where their expertise or where their level of expertise is on this issue. That was really my point.
All right. Well, one of those candidates, Mike Gravel, very much on the Palestinian side. This is what he tweeted: "The bloodshed in Palestine and Israel will not cease until the fundamentally unjust existing structure is jettisoned. We cannot support a right-wing racist regime committed to annexation and gradual ethnic cleansing. There must be a binational state with equal rights for all." Now, granted, he's not exactly a frontrunner. He doesn't even make any of the polls so far. But, Steve, what do you make of that kind of commentary from any elected leader accusing Israel of gradual ethnic cleansing?
Well, to begin with, Kevin did bring up a good point, and to your point, there is pressure coming in from the socialist wing of the Democrat Party, and I'll name her, Representative Ilhan Omar, who is advancing a socialist anti-Israel and bordering on anti-American policies to damage Israel. They're not friends of Israel. They never will be friends of Israel, and that's why most of the Democrats are remaining silent. And by the way, this silence is emboldening individuals like the one you just cited to take the positions they take. But we will never turn our back on Israel. Never.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. Steve Rogers, Kevin Chavez, always appreciate your analysis and perspective.